It's cold out. As I've been learning how to garden for birds, I've been learning about different kinds of foods that we should be planting. And one of the foods that I think has the most fascinating relationship with birds is berries. Birds and berries co-evolved in ways that are really intricate and beautiful. And especially in the harshest times of the year, like fall getting ready for migration, or for overwintering birds getting ready to go into winter, even birds that don't really eat berries typically start to rely on berries more. There's really specific nutritional content in the berries that can actually help them to survive. So I thought I'd sit outside in the rain today and tell you guys about some of the best shrubs that you could plant for migrating birds and for overwintering birds. And by the way, 30 minutes ago it was snowing beautifully, and now it's raining, like right into my eyes. So one of the really important things that birds need, both for migration and for overwintering in cold areas, is fat and carbohydrates, especially for migrators. And so there's actually a nice list of high-fat berries, and one of the fattiest is about 50% fat, a little bit more, and this is northern bayberry. So this is a large shrub. I think it gets up to about 16 feet tall. Sort of reluctantly deciduous, so it will kind of hold its leaves late into the season. It's little blueberries that are, again, about 50% fat. So this is a great source of food, and it's a beautiful berry. There are also, in a sort of a neighboring family, wax myrtle shrubs. And wax myrtles are, again, kind of reluctantly deciduous. There is both a western and an eastern species. And again, they have sort of a waxy berry that is high in fat. Especially for birds that are overwintering, a lot of the time, the way that they can survive some of the cold nights is by literally shivering all night. And that takes a huge amount of energy. And so fat is really what they're craving in order to build up the energy just to survive the night on some of the harsher nights. And especially if you're up north in some of the colder climates, this is really critical. So for both the bayberry and the wax myrtles, these are dioecious plants, so you would need both males and females in order to produce berries, in order to produce fruit. And typically, I think you can get away with like 1 male to 6 female plants. Our native viburnums are another amazing plant for high fat. Arrowwood viburnum, for example, has berries that are about 40% fat. And another nice thing about our viburnums is they typically have berries that are really high in antioxidants. And especially for migrating birds, they can undergo something called oxidative stress when they're going through their hundreds to thousands of miles migration for some species. This can be extremely intensive for them. They don't typically take breaks. They would eat during the day and fly at night. And so that's an extremely strenuous thing to go through twice a year. And so the antioxidants that are available in many of our native shrubs like viburnums are really important to helping them to survive just that stress, the oxidative stress response that their bodies would have to that sort of endurance challenge. There are lots of species of dogwood shrubs. Gray dogwood is one example that has, again, about 40% fat content in the berries. Dogwood shrubs are also very high in calcium. So these are really great berries for female birds to recover from a season of egg laying. So again, it's sort of amazing how in sync our native shrubs are with our native birds, and how they can support the nutritional needs that these birds have at very specific times of the year. There are quite a number of different dogwood species. Gray dogwood is one that's high in fat. I'm not positive about the other species in terms of fat content, but silky dogwood is one that's also a specialist host pollinator plant for several specialist bees. I planted something called pagoda dogwood this year. It's sort of either a large shrub or a smaller tree, and it has this really beautiful lateral branching structure. It would be really stunning in like a Japanese garden or really any garden. But that produced berries this year, and they were gone within like a week. Again, that's sort of a fall fruiting shrub that's really great for migrating birds. Northern spicebush is another one that has about 33% fat content in the berries, has beautiful, stunning yellow fall color. Little red berries. This one again is dioecious, so this needs both female and male plants in order to fruit. But again, another really stunning plant that's during this time of year, it's one that the birds really go for. It's also a host for the spicebush swallowtail butterfly, so that's an amazing addition for your garden both in the spring and in the fall. So burning bush is really commonly planted for fall color, and it's an invasive shrub. Typically what's sold in the nurseries is an invasive shrub. It's an Asian species, but we have an American variety also called Eastern Wahoo. I'll put the Latin names for all the plants as I'm speaking, because it's really important that we seek out the North American species of these plants, because those are the ones that have co-evolved with the North American birds and that actually have tailored nutritional content to our birds, and that fruit at the correct time. So non-native species fruit too late in the season, and they don't have the proper nutritional content. They just aren't good, healthy foods for birds who are going to go under these kinds of stressful events. So American burning bush has about 30% fat content, and it's a beautiful shrub. It's really hard to find this one. When I was looking online, I mostly found it available through seeds. So I would love to try to propagate one of these so I can kind of give a little bit more information about how the species germinates, how easy they are to start from seeds. So that's something I'm planning to do in the future, but I haven't yet done. So I don't have a lot of personal experience with this shrub, but it is a beauty. It has beautiful fall color, just like the Asian species, and it makes the cutest little pink fruits. They have sort of like an umbrella shell that pops up off of them. Really beautiful plant. Snowberry is an unusual one that has white fruits, sort of large, fluffy white berries. And this is sort of, I think, native more to the north and west portions of North America. This is a fruit that will persist through into the winter. So you would have these white berries kind of hanging on your shrub through the winter time, which is really beautiful and unusual. These are high in an antioxidant called saponin that is sort of unusual. It's sort of a soapy material that I think Native Americans even would actually use these fruits to wash and disinfect. So that's an antioxidant-rich berry for the birds as well. Beautyberry is sort of an analogous species for more of the eastern and southern portions of North America. This one has a vibrant purple berry, and it's high in water content. It is, I believe, high in antioxidants, and it's another one that the fruit will persist into the winter, so you'll have some color in your garden. Typically in the nurseries, what you're going to see is a Japanese variety or an Asian variety, and so it's important to seek out the North American variety. Again, that's the one that's going to have fruit at the right times and properly, balance nutrition for North American birds. Some other high antioxidant berries are chokeberries. There are, I think, at least 2 varieties of chokeberry, a red and a black. The black tend to be very dense in antioxidants, and in general, darker colored berries, apparently that's sort of an indicator for high antioxidant richness. Blueberries are another great one. You can plant these obviously for yourself and maybe allocate a few bushes that you could share with some of the birds. Again, high in antioxidants, you can kind of tell by that dark blue color. Elderberry, again, another one that's really important for birds. When I planted this year, it still just looks like a stick, but I saw one in a local state park that was really beautiful, so I'll put up some footage of that. It's a North American cranberry. It's a viburnum species, and it has red fruits that will persist through the winter. This is one that the fruits are very high in acid, so typically birds can't eat them without an additional protein source to help break down the berries. And the protein that typically is consumed is pollen. So this is a species that will hold its berries through the winter typically, and most birds won't consume them until the spring when they have more protein sources available like insects and pollen. And this is a great one to attract cedar waxwings. In particular, they will go for that sort of pollen/berry coupling that lets them break down the berries and digest them properly. So that's another one that would have a lot of sort of winter interest in your garden because the fruits will persist through the winter. There are lots and lots of species of sumac, and that's another great one that will have winter fruit that will persist through the winter. These ones are high in vitamin C and antioxidants, and so that's a great one to attract, especially apparently bluebirds really enjoy it. It can be a little bit assertive, so you might need to have a little bit of a larger garden typically to have a sumac, but I really adore these plants because they're one of the few species that can compete with a lot of our sort of wild spaces where it's basically taken over with Asian bittersweet and tree of heaven. Typically mixed in with those species, I'll see sumacs growing, and it's exciting to see something surviving that is a North American species at least. But that does kind of indicate that they can be a little bit assertive. But they are beautiful shrubs, beautiful fall color, and again, really important food source for birds. Another good one to attract bluebirds is winterberry holly. This is one that will have fruits that will persist through the winter as well. And this is another one that's dioecious, so you'll need both males and females. And again, typically I think about 1 male to 6 female plants is typically what's planted or required. And so you would have sort of 1 shrub amongst the grouping that would have no berries, and then up to 6 shrubs that would be fruiting and hold berries. And that's another one that, again, will attract bluebirds. And it's not as nutritionally dense as a lot of the other berries, but it is an important one that I think that they rely on, especially through the winter and spring for nutrition. I think it is kind of important to sometimes be outside in the space in these challenging parts of the season where it can be really easy to kind of dissociate from the hardship of wildlife trying to survive outside in these conditions. But our gardens are some of the last remaining places where we can kind of control and provide quality habitat for them. So these are some of the heavy hitters that I have sort of discovered in my own research as I've been trying to learn what should I be planting in my own garden and what would best benefit birds and bring them in so I can look at them and enjoy them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this is helpful to you. And as always, I really appreciate hearing any ideas and thoughts that you guys have in the comments. And I think I'm going to go in and maybe roll up in a towel. All right, cool. It's wet out here.